Bitcoin is close to becoming worthless.
Let's go. Now, what's the Bitcoin?
Bitcoin's like rat poison.
Yeah. Oh,
The greatest scam in history.
let's get it.
Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
Yeah.
Alright, you ungovernable misfits. I'm your host, Max. Everybody knows that Bitcoin is useless, worthless, and doomed to fail. But what if everyone's wrong? What if it's the system that is doomed to fail? Join me as I speak to some of the brightest people in the space and slither to the deepest, darkest depths of the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Welcome back to Bitcoin Monthly. I have Bitcoin Q&A back and Antomous as well. We got to discuss Tornado Cash on Ethereum and what a clusterfuck that is. We had a reminder of why privacy and decentralisation is so important. And we discussed the updates to border wallets, seed tools, Vulcan 21, and went into the mining month a little bit. I really enjoyed chatting to these guys, and I suggest if you aren't already following Antomous and Bitcoin Q&A, you go and do it now. Before we start, I want to thank my sponsors. Let's start with my anonymous sponsor. They have asked that I push the podcasting 2.0 as much as possible and make sure that this show stays as clean and pure signal as possible. So, I want to thank everyone who has been reaching out on the podcasting 2.0 app. Recently, I have had boosts from Blocked Hash, Valley Dog, Letter 6173, John, App Mithrandir, Tace, Joey Double D, Uncle, Mr. CD Brown, Permaculture, Fistful of Sats, Zaka Boy, Denton, Bon, and Crypto Anonymous. Thank you all for the boosts, it is massively appreciated, and I will be pushing podcasting 2.0 more as time goes on. It just means that I don't have to yield and take on shitty sponsors that I don't believe in. That is not what I'm here for, and that is not what Bitcoin is about. If you haven't already started using podcasting 2.0, you can use Fountain or you can use Breeze. I'm personally using Fountain at the moment and I absolutely love it. If anyone has any questions about it or wants to reach out to me, you can do, and I will help in any way I can. Next up, I'd like to thank Foundation Devices for sponsoring the show. It really is amazing to have a company like this on board. They are making my favourite hardware wallets. Not only are they open source, but they are also absolutely beautiful design. They have an incredible team, including Bitcoin Q&A and Lily. Thanks to these guys, it is becoming more and more accessible to keep your keys secure and your sats safe. If you haven't already checked them out, go to foundationdevices.com and you can use the code BITBYBIT to get $10 off your purchase. If you have any questions at all, you can reach out to me and I will help in any way I can. If I can't answer your questions, I will pass you on to the team. And finally, I'd like to thank Fast Bitcoins. Fast Bitcoins is the only exchange that I suggest people use. They are based in the Isle of Man. They have a great team and they are expanding at a rapid rate. If you absolutely must use a KYC service, make sure you at least use one that pushes you away from keeping your sats on their exchange and does everything they can to keep you secure. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. Yeah, that's better. Is Antomous there? He's just lurking in the background. I can see him, but I can't hear him.
I can't hear him.
Can you see him?
Yes.
Really lurking.
Maybe he's just waiting to do a spectacular entrance or something. He's just kind of stringing us along a little bit. Oh, no, he's on Telegram saying, can you hear me?
No. Well, I'm sure he'll work it out. New with you, mate?
What's new with me? Much of the same, really. Not a lot has changed. We've still got database hacks. We've still got Maxis cancelling people on Twitter. We've still got regulators regulating. So, Yeah, not a lot has changed in the Bitcoin world, really. It just seems to be different parties involved, which I'm sure we're going to dive into, obviously, over the next hour or so.
Yeah, it's brutal out there. It's just
It
like
definitely feels as though things are starting to hot up a little bit. I don't know what you think.
Hello.
here we are.
Hey,
That wasn't a spectacular entrance. We were thinking you were going to do something amazing, sing us a song or something like that.
Oh man, missed it. How you doing, guys?
I'm sweating my bollocks off in a little box room. Q&A is doing the same, but he's got air conditioned. He's got a team of people fanning him, keeping him cool, running him drinks, all that kind of rock star stuff.
ironically, I am drinking a piping hot coffee, which probably wasn't the best idea, really, in today's
Me too. How about you, mate?
Yeah, all good. All good. It's a nice early morning. It's a bit cooler here. So it's actually quite good to force yourself to get into the office early, do a bit of work before it gets really hot here, because we're in like a pretty, like the last week has been really hot. So like the office heated up pretty brutally. So I've got the windows open at night to cool it down. So in the morning it's nice. So that's wonderful.
Where are you? Still in Dubai?
Exactly, like in the 60th floor. So letting the windows open is fine at night. No one's getting in.
Did you both have a good trip back from the Wales weekender?
Oh, that was wonderful, man. I mean, the trip back, I mean, that was fine. Had a stay with the family as well in England for another week and have a bit of time with the nephews and stuff. That was great. But yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. Like a week afterwards was just absolute bliss of just complete relaxation from the wind and the weather and the sun and all the connections built there. It's wonderful.
You had a bit of a shocker on the way there. Did you also have a nightmare on the way back?
It was okay. It was actually okay. I mean, it was long, but it was all fine. I had a bit of jumping backwards and forwards and to get places. Just traveling to the airport was just quite a hassle. But we had a lot of time, so it was all smooth. That was all fun, wonderful.
Yeah, you were missed there, Q&A.
Yeah,
not that much. But
It's it sounds like by all accounts everybody had a really good weekend, and it was a little bit bittersweet listening to you all on last month's podcast talking about how awesome it was. So I'm just glad that you've welcomed me back. I thought once I heard that podcast, I thought that might have been curtains for my my regular slot on this monthly show. I thought that's it now. He's a goner.
Well, I did consider it. I scheduled black coffee for this morning, but we pushed it later. I was thinking, I might just actually push Q&A out here. We'll have black coffee in, but we couldn't do that to you, mate.
Well, little do you know is that Antomous and I are going to Riga at the end of the month, and we're going to start our own monthly podcast. And you're out, mate. Sorry.
That's actually fair enough. That's actually very reasonable.
Yeah, and I'll postpone my judgment for mid of September. I'll let it sink in a bit, and then I've met you both, and then I'll see where I.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, at least I won't have to do the editing anymore, so that's fine. Before you jumped on, Antomous, me and Q&A were just sort of, well, before recording, I think it was as well, saying just generally out there, it seems like things are hotting up, not just the temperature, not just literally sweating, but all of the stuff that's happening at the moment. It seems like governments around the world are cranking things up. People are doing more and more clownish things in the space. And what are your thoughts on everything you're seeing at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like the first time that I'm experiencing the fallout of a big drop, because I wasn't in after the 2017 drop. So over the last few years, that's kind of been the narrative and the expectation I've been hearing, as well as that if we get another big crash, if things do come down and there are casualties, that there'll be a lot more crackdown on regulation and so on. So I think that's just the beginning now of what we're going to see. Just the size and the magnitude and the reach that the crash now over the last few months has had on the whole financial markets, and just people getting absolutely wrecked in shitcoining with the big over collateralized companies just going underwater. I think all of that's coming together for a lot of people to call for regulation, but also for people in those positions to kind of feel a sense of duty to step in to prevent it from happening again. And then also other people just seeing an opportunity to push through some kind of restrictions and laws they've been looking to push for quite a while, and seeing this opportunity. So I think it was kind of expected, and I am expecting a lot more. And it's always something that's during like the pump phases is all a bit in the background, and all comes up to the surface when we plunge. So I'd only expect more to come now over the next half year or so.
Yeah, it's been something we've been talking about for ages, and it's like you said, it's expected, but it definitely feels like it's heating up. And then you've also got all the bitching and infighting and everything else because everyone's wrecked and feeling a bit down and everything else. So it's an interesting one. I've spent a lot less time on Twitter over the last few months just because I really just can't be bothered with that sort of stuff. But as long as we got the tools to get us out the other side, that's what matters. Whereas I think, was it Q&A you just sent through this Tornado Cash thing? That looks like maybe they don't have the tools anymore.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting one, and it's kind of hot off the press within the last 3 or 4 days, maybe. So, Tornado Cash is an Ethereum coin join protocol. So, people listening to this might be thinking, why the hell are we talking about this? For the simple reason being the ramifications that it's going to almost certainly going to have into the Bitcoin, and I'm sure certainly the wider crypto ecosystem, I'm sure, in years to come. So yeah, Tornado Cash is essentially the largest by far sort of privacy protocol / smart contract on the Ethereum network. Basically, if you want privacy on Ethereum, which generally speaking is terrible because they use like an account system. So if you know your account, anybody can see all of the assets and whatnot that you hold. So Tornado Cash was like the de facto service that people use to gain some privacy when they're using Ethereum. And I think it's done something to the tune of like $7 billion since the time it's been active. So this week, I should also caveat the fact that it's non-custodial, and it's also, I'm using air quotes here, decentralized. So as far as something on Ethereum can be decentralized, but what I mean by that is it's not sort of it's at the protocol level. It's a smart contract. It's not kind of run by a company, etc. So it is sort of, in air quotes, decentralized, and that's what makes this piece of regulation all the more staggering, and why we all should be paying close attention to it. So the US Department, the Treasury Department, has added basically the whole Tornado Cash smart contract or anything to do with it to the OFAC sanctions list, which essentially prohibits anybody in the US and anybody in a jurisdiction that complies with the US, which unfortunately is most of the world at the moment, from having any dealings with the Tornado Cash smart contract address. So this is the first of its kind. So we've seen OFAC sanctions before on Bitcoin addresses, Ethereum individual addresses, Monero addresses. It's not uncommon to see that. We've also seen it for custodial mixers. So I forget the names of them now, but there's been multiple custodial Bitcoin and Ethereum mixers before now, where you send your Bitcoin in, you lose custody of it, and you get sent somebody else's Bitcoin back. And that's very much a custodial relationship. They've been sanctioned before now, and it's hardly surprising because they are sort of money transmitters, if you like. Tornado Cash is very different to that. Like I say, decentralized, non-custodial. It's just software. This is the first time that something like this has been added to the sanctions list, and unfortunately may, hopefully may not, but we don't know yet, be setting a precedent for other similar or other protocols that take similar approaches. Something like Samurai, maybe Wasabi, or anything that runs on different chains as well. They're all just software. They're all non-custodial. So I could very much see protocols like that being tarred with exactly the same brush. There are some nuances. Like I said before, Ethereum runs on the sort of account system where it's far easier to see who's had dealings with what, whereas something like Samurai's Whirlpool, it's much more difficult. There isn't like a smart contract address that you can kind of sanction and say anybody's touching or having any dealings with that contract or whatever is in violation of the OFAC list. The UTXO model of Bitcoin and the way that Whirlpool and similar protocols are set up are going to certainly make enforcement all that more difficult, but would also make the sort of guidelines of how the OFAC violation might be categorized, I guess is probably the best way I can put it, would be sort of enforced. So it's not going to be as simple as tarring it with the same brush, but the key bit here is the fact that it's a non-custodial, decentralized piece of software that is essentially just been broadly added to the OFAC list and basically saying that you can't deal with this piece of software. So a little bit scary. Bitcoiners should be worried about this, in my opinion, because it does set a pretty dangerous precedent. But yeah, it's the first of its kind and something I'm going to be watching fairly closely. Don't know if you guys have got anything to add to that or thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely brutal. I'm read into it a bit yesterday evening, and how quickly this all went. Now, I mean, I don't know how long they've been working on this, but I mean, it went out. I think the sanction on Monday, and yesterday GitHub closed down everything. Their domain has been shut down, and that's the most shocking part, is that GitHub even decided to block 3 of their developers. So the main contributors' accounts were blocked on GitHub, which was not part of the sanctions. So they went over and above what was asked of them by the OFAC.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think it's worse than that. You are right. The main maintainers of that GitHub repository, the GitHub repo was deleted. They had their accounts deleted, but they also went as far as anybody that's ever contributed to that code base in the past has either had some level of restriction put on their GitHub account, or they've had that deleted as well. And any subsequent works that are affiliated with or similar to Tornado Cash that have also been contributed to by the same people who contributed to Tornado Cash, that stuff's already also been removed as well. So a massive overreach, and obviously Microsoft have just taken it upon themselves to, I suppose if I was to put myself in their shoes, why would they deal with it? The easiest thing for Microsoft to do is to just remove all of this stuff, and they don't have to worry about any potential infringements or any, they don't have to worry about being in violation of OFAC or being complicit in any way. It's not going to hurt their bottom line, is it? They're a massive tech conglomerate, so removing a few accounts is absolutely no skin off their nose. But again, another reason why Bitcoiners should be worried about this sort of stuff, because where is the main code base hosted? It's on GitHub. So it could be removed in an instant. Now, of course, that's not going to mean that Bitcoin falls over. Obviously, there's hundreds of thousands of copies of the Bitcoin code base everywhere. And the way that the underlying system that GitHub is built on, which is called Git, was designed to be like a decentralized system. And the way that most people use it is that they have the code base on their local computer, they propose the changes, and then they push it to GitHub mainly. So if GitHub was to take down the Bitcoin repository, Bitcoin will live on. It's just going to have more of a social consensus hurdle to get over, because it's not just of where the code is hosted and where it's maintained, but a lot of the social aspect of making changes or code review and all that is all done on GitHub. All of the comments, all of the pull requests, all of the discussion around, the potential next soft fork, hard fork, any change to the code base, no matter how trivial, all of that chat is done within GitHub. There are alternative channels like IRC, etc., but all of the sort of stuff that's tightly code based is generally done on GitHub. So it would be a big hurdle if they were to take the same approach and go more broadly and start taking down things like the Bitcoin repository. So I think again it's just another start warning that the privacy circles have been warning about for years. Trusted third parties are security holes. GitHub is a trusted third party, and decentralization absolutely matters, and we've seen that with another fallout from these OFAC lists is that any was it USDC, the Circle stablecoin?
Yeah.
Though any USDC coins that have also interacted loosely with Tornado Cash or been instantly frozen. So again, just harking back to some decentralization. Obviously, USDC is absolutely not decentralized, and that's clearly evident by the fact that Circle have been able to see which of those USDC coins have been through or near Tornado Cash, and they're instantly frozen. And whoever had those assets or thought they had those assets now no longer is able to transact, and they've presumably lost that money. So again, decentralization doesn't matter until it does. So this is why we Bitcoin. This is why we harp on about holding our own keys and using decentralized protocols so that we are resistant to attacks like this. And I'm sure this is just very much the beginning.
Yeah, it's pretty worrying. Like the two things I'm thinking there are obviously with GitHub is there not an option? You said that you have Git rather than GitHub, and that's meant to be decentralized, and then you push on to the main hub. Is there not a way that something can be run where you don't use Microsoft, or is it just that there's this massive network effect, a bit like Twitter? You can spin something off, but it's like, well, no one cares.
Yeah, there's alternatives. You have GitLab, which the Samurai guys use, and again, they're ahead of the curve here. They've been self-hosting their own GitLab for a couple of years now, purely because they knew that eventually somebody's going to come after the privacy guys, and they can't be deplatformed. They're running their own GitHub alternative on their own servers. But yeah, you're absolutely right. GitHub has the network effect. It is the de facto Git, the way that you interact with the Git protocol, but it doesn't have to be that way. So I would love to see like the Bitcoin repository on a self-hosted alternative. But then the problem is, well, the person who's doing the hosting is kind of another trusted third party then, aren't they? So it's, I don't know if there's a way to sort of like decentralize the ownership of one master repository that's self-hosted, if that makes sense.
That's what I was thinking that. I was like, I don't know how the fuck you do it technically, but if you had, everyone has the same copy on their little Raspberry Pi or whatever it is they're running, and you have a certain amount of people who run that and it checks against each other to make sure that nothing's changed. That seems as though that would be a good idea, but I don't know how much data it needs to move and store and everything else, because if it wasn't masses, could you not just have it running on all the Bitcoin node implementations? Could you not have it that... Fuck's sake, did you just hear that? Just drop something.
Yep.
Yep. Do you know what I mean? Like, that must be something that's possible, unless it is masses of data. If someone's running their Bitcoin node and it's like, oh, do you want to download this extra app? And then that app is the thing that runs this, what was it called? GitLab or whatever it was.
Yeah, so stuff like that does already exist, and I think even Umbrella's got like I think it hosts Gitia. That bit's not the issue. Everybody could run their own GitLab or alternative on their own computers. The problem is that there has to be one kind of central hub that's managed as to this is where the official Bitcoin code base is, because anybody that downloads it has to get it from a single semi-trusted source, don't they? So the bit of people having their own copies of it is the easy bit. It's having that one place where it is the recommended place that you go to download it, and that where all of the it's the de facto location, if that makes sense. That's the difficult bit.
I know what you mean. It just seems like there must be a way that could be done, because Bitcoin can do it. So
Well, that's exactly the thing. I mean, that's why Bitcoin like has, I mean, the whole proof of work mining. I mean, that's to be able to like verify changes and to keep everything in sync, isn't it? So if you have like a whole network of people working on a code base and it's completely decentralized, you'd need some kind of system of like getting everyone in sync and verifying each change and so on. So I think you do kind of need some kind of central point, but it could be even multiple probably that then coordinate so that you are not relying on one specific thing. And I think those are all issues that can be solved, just like diverging to one of those and getting like consensus on what to use. That's going to be a huge issue, especially if like something like you were mentioning Q&A, that GitHub would take down Bitcoin, the whole Bitcoin repository, if like a decision like that would have to be made like on the fly in like a shock moment like that, that would be a huge problem to work through. And yeah, I mean, as we were talking about Samurai as well, obviously that I was thinking of that as well, that they have their own version and are not using GitHub. What they are using is they have a registered domain for their site. I mean, that was something that was taken down for Tornado Cash as well. But I presume, I think Samurai will have a Tor and like an onion address too to get through to that. But still, there are a lot of different attack vectors that can and will be used to make it extremely difficult for people to access it if they don't know exactly where to go and how to get the stuff. So I think it's really important that, especially these projects that maybe are somewhere in the crosshairs, to think about that. What would happen in these situations? How would they react? How would they stay accessible and operational? And also just think about, if you're contributing as well to one of these projects, maybe do that under a different NIM that you do for other projects, just so that you don't mix that up. Stay conscious of your privacy online, and try and think a few steps ahead, because we all want to see these projects being further maintained and developed. They are incredibly important for all of us just to have at our disposal. So everyone who's working on that, please, take the time to think this through so that this can be done as long as possible.
Yeah, the other thing that I forgot to add, just going back to the Ethereum piece, just in case anybody had any doubt about the lack of decentralization in Ethereum, basically not many people in Ethereum run their own node because it's far more difficult than it is to do so on Bitcoin. So what most people do is they plug into an API that is run by a company called Infura, which is essentially the node backend for the vast majority of Ethereum wallets. As soon as these sanctions came out, they essentially blocked all access to the Tornado Cash URL or Tor, however the wallets were contacting that smart contract, instantly just blocked. So even if you wanted to try and evade the sanctions and continue using the Tornado Cash service, despite all of the risk and warnings, then unless you were running your own Ethereum node, which again, like I said, not many people do, Infura basically just took that decision out of your hands, and you couldn't do so even if you wanted to. So again, I keep saying it, decentralization doesn't matter until it does, and now it does.
Can they withdraw? Because I think that the process was kind of that you set up a smart contract saying that if you send to a certain address, you'd be able to withdraw from a different address, kind of like a submarine swap kind of system, as I understand it from the process itself. But they were advised to keep the funds in that address as long as possible, because the longer they keep it in there, the more difficult it is to trace back. So if you transferred money, if you deposited money into the deposit address and waited, and now all of this was shut down and you hadn't withdrawn yet, is it still possible for the people to access their funds, or is this all locked?
I'm going to presume yes, because I have not seen anything on Twitter about people having funds locked up, with the exception of the stable coins on the Circle stable coins that I was talking about earlier. I've not heard of anybody having just pure Ethereum that they cannot access. But obviously, I'm not that exposed to Ethereum Twitter, so I just see what others are retweeting, etc. But I've not seen that. So, but again, that does come with me holding my hands up and saying that this is probably the first time I've ever remotely looked in any level of detail at anything Ethereum based. So it may just be my level of understanding, but I've certainly not seen that anybody has had funds locked, like I say, with the exception of those Circle stable coins.
Presumably, it's the same thing as you're saying with the deposits as well. You'd need to have your own node to even access that and set up that transaction, and then you would also rely on miners mining that. And I don't know, I haven't read anything about miners complying with these sanctions. But also, I mean, most of the miners on Ethereum, as I've heard, are relying on Infura anyway. So that's kind of a centralizing point in either case.
Yeah, this is an interesting point that you make, actually. So Ethereum's currently proof of work, just like Bitcoin. So it would be easier currently for miners to ignore the sanctions if they're running their own node and just process transactions with the highest fee. As they're incentivized to do, they're in it to make money. Ethereum is about to move to a proof of stake system. So in the not too distant, well, they're supposed to be moving to it for a long time. So yeah, I know what you're thinking. They're allegedly moving to a proof of stake system where, if they do actually pull it off and they move to that, as we all know, proof of stake systems tend to heavily centralize over time to regulated entities that offer staking rewards to their users. So people store their shitcoin with said company. That company does all the staking and becomes a very powerful actor as a validator node. So if this does happen and they do go to proof of stake, and there's going to be a few big players that are essentially in control of the transaction processing, then Ethereum just gets even more centralized than it already is. So it's just going to become an absolute complete shit show and just an even more cooked network than it already is. So potentially going to get even more disastrous. And again, harks back to why we Bitcoin.
Yeah. And coming back to Bitcoin, like you said, this is a dangerous precedent being set. And, I couldn't really give a fuck about Ethereum, but the fact that this is happening does sort of prove out that this is the way things are going to go. And then what does that mean? I think for me, like, it feels like we are going to go to this whitelisted and blacklisted coins eventually. You are going to have this sort of split where if you're using services to protect your privacy and keep yourself safe, you won't be allowed to interact with the whitelisted Coinbases of the world or any of that stuff that touches the legacy system at some point in time, because presumably, even if you're going into something like Whirlpool and you're coming out and they don't know that UTXO is owned by you, they still know that it's been through the pool. And so presumably they can then say, oh, okay, this UTXO 1 hop, 2 hops ago had been through Whirlpool. If you want to go and buy this Lamborghini, well, you can't. You're not allowed. The person processing that payment is not going to allow it, which is sort of something that I'm comfortable with personally, because A, I don't really want to interact with the legacy system. B, this is about more to me than just number go up. And, the people who are making these ridiculous, fucked up decisions are going to make them forever, and they're going to get worse and worse unless we stand up to it. And so is this the time now where people see the writing on the wall and just go, fuck it, I'm going to go to the dark side, I'm not going to allow this?
Yeah, well, to be fair to your point about, we're going to kind of see two sides to the network, that's, in my opinion, has already started. You can't use services like BlockFi or what's the UK one with the mobile app? Yeah, anyway, there's multiple services that already are blatantly clear about saying that you can't use our service if you use CoinJoin. It's that simple. So we've already started to see it to happen, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. These regulated companies are not going to openly they're going to pander to the regulators, is what I'm trying to say, and they don't care about the end user. They're just going to do what they need to do to stay regulated, to stay legal, so that they can operate as a regulated business. So I think, yeah, I don't see any signs of that stopping, and I think there is a potential for some sort of bifurcation or bifurification of the network that we see whitelisted coins, blacklisted coins, however you want to see it, and that they can only be spent within their sort of respective ecosystem. But there is a glimmer of hope in all of this, and we've seen some people are still starting to wake up to the need for privacy, especially with Bitcoin. And perfect example of that is the Whirlpool unspent capacity. Keeps going up and up and up. We're hitting all-time highs literally pretty much every day at the moment. We hit 5,000 Bitcoin just a week or two ago. The Samurai team put out the biggest discount code that they've ever done to celebrate, with 50% off mixing fees. And then within a couple of days, another 600 Bitcoin decided to flow into that post-mix pool. So yeah, currently sitting at 5,612 Bitcoin. I believe we have been a little bit higher than that, but we're hovering around all-time highs. So I like to see that as a little beacon of hope that people are waking up to the need for it. And there is some hope in me that if we can, and I hate to use their terminology, but if we can kind of muddy the waters with enough Bitcoin, that all of this regulation and all of this kind of whitelisting coins becomes absolutely futile. Because, if you've got a big portion of the network that is, in their words, blacklisted or dirty coins that have been through collaborative transactions and coin joins that they can't discern the history of, then there's going to come a point where these businesses, if they're not choosing not to do business with these people or the people behind these UTXOs, that's going to start to hit their bottom line, and that's all that they care about ultimately. So I think if we can keep this trend going, we can hit a tipping point where we can get to that point where we're going to leave these regulated businesses no option but to at least consider not over-regulating, because ultimately, so using services like Whirlpool is not illegal. There's no, I'm not aware of any jurisdiction that outlaws using CoinJoin. It's just that these businesses are scared that it might do in the future, so they choose not to, which is their prerogative, of course. But I'm hopeful that we can hit that tipping point and to see that unspent capacity number rise consistently is really promising.
To your point as well, Q&A, with like if the pool is large enough, it's not just the businesses that will be hurt by their bottom line, but also just the amount of political pressure as well. If just more people in the respective jurisdiction have funds in those pools, they'll have an incentive to also support more legislation to prohibit restrictions or to include those going forward. But there's one point I wanted to get your thoughts on, or both of yours, was with CoinJoin, we have two different implementations, one being the way Samurai's gone with the equal output coin joins that are very visible on chain, but then also another implementation that is then more with a make-a-taker model, that you have the option to decide with every coin join what the outputs will be, so it is not as visible on chain. And going forward, that might be something that will become more and more relevant if CoinJoin does become outlawed, or there are restrictions on that, that even if you do get your hands on the software and you do choose to use it, it will be a lot more visible on chain.
My personal view on it is everyone should just fucking ignore that. I like the fact that they have the equal output. I like the fact that it is visible. And as Q&A said, it does muddy the waters. What are we doing here if we're not trying to make ungovernable money? If we're just going to see that, that could be a problem in the future. Oh, well, they might whitelist the coins. Well, I better play nice then. I better make sure that they can't see it on chain. No, fuck that. Everyone should just be doing it. And how are they going to control it? Because it's we're not going to accept your money. Why? Oh, because it's been through a coin join. When? Was it 1 hop ago, 2 hops ago, 7 hops ago? a year ago, 5 years ago? Are they saying if it's ever been through, we're not going to touch it? And if that is their stance, then they're not going to be taking any money because, as long as people stand up and you have a group of Bitcoiners who are like, no, fuck that. If we do that now, then they're not going to be able to touch anything. That would be my view on it. I just think if we're going to kowtow and be scared and worried at this stage, we're already fucked because it's going to get much worse.
Yeah, completely agree. You've also got like a new dynamic where more and more exchanges are adding Lightning deposits and withdrawals. Now, we know that Lightning is not the privacy utopia that some people paint it out to be, and it does have many pitfalls. But certainly from a deposit perspective, if I was to go and deposit to, I don't know, Kraken or whatever from Lightning, via Lightning, sorry, that they'll have a very difficult time discerning the history of where those funds have come from, just because of the way that Lightning send transactions are structured. There's multiple hops, so they can't discern which node it's come from, etc., etc. Privacy, sender privacy on Lightning is pretty good currently. So if they were to take the stance that we've just been talking about with CoinJoins, where they don't accept it because they can either see that you've been through a CoinJoin 7 hops back, or they just can't discern the history. If they start to clamp down on that, then they're also going to have to clamp down on Lightning, because for different reasons, the outcome is the same. They can't discern the history of it. They may not be able to link it to an on-chain UTXO. They don't know if this person's just hopped into Lightning to deposit for a privacy reason, or whether, they don't know the origin of those sats. It's exactly the same, same output. So, it's like you were alluding to, Max, it's a case of, well, if we start this, where do we draw the line? Because we could do ourselves out of business here ultimately if we take it all the way to, we're not taking CoinJoins with any history, we're not taking Lightning deposits. Well, those deposits are quickly going to start to dry up.
Yeah. Bitcoin, the way I see it, is like it's a huge middle finger to the system. That's what it is. It's like, you guys fucked up. No more. We're not doing it anymore. And I don't want to see that stop. I don't want to see people starting to worry about, oh, well, can I spend my funds when they're £1 million? Oh, it's like, no, you have to make a stand. Like, this is the last stand that you can make. And if you don't, you're going to be enslaved. So it's pretty fucking important. Yeah, I think you're right as well, though. Like, if you're using Lightning and they can't trace it back, well, then, if someone really does want to spend the funds and it has been through Whirlpool, then maybe that's the answer. Maybe it's just, send them through Lightning, bounce them around a little bit, and then pull them out the other side. And it's like, well, how are you going to prove where that came from in the end? I think basically it's going to be whatever regulations they make, we'll find a way around it. And the other thing I was thinking when we're talking about these regulated exchanges accepting Lightning, is there a case that could be made for an exchange or a business coin joining funds before they send any funds back out to users for privacy reasons, so that you could have, one of these companies saying, well, to protect our customers, we coin join and then we send the funds out? Would that be something that they'd just get shut down for immediately, or could they make that case? Because if they could, then that's a done deal. Like, if these exchanges start doing that, or a few exchanges start doing that, then there's huge volume going through there. Could that be something that could be done? Could we twist some people's arms?
Yeah, so I know Bull Bitcoin, which is a Canada-based exchange, actually does this pretty much for the reason, or what they state publicly is the exactly reason that you just said. It's to protect their users' privacy. They're the only ones that I know publicly that do it. There may be people in the background that are doing it. I'm sure if they were, we'd probably see it, because obviously everything's on chain, and generally speaking, exchanges have known clusters of addresses. So if any other companies were doing it, we'd be able to see it. But my guess is that nobody else will do it because they're fearful of what the regulators might say. But yeah, I know Bull Bitcoin do that.
I don't know if we've lost connection or if everyone's gone quiet.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, you're still there?
I was wondering the same thing.
Well, I'm waiting for Brian Armstrong to come out with a press release saying that he's going to do it. That's what I'm hopeful for.
Yeah, with this, like Bull Bitcoin doing that, I mean, it's absolutely amazing that they are doing it. But I don't. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't quite see the benefit because, well, other than that they're contributing to the to just UTXOs in Whirlpool and the liquidity there. But
To be clear, they're not using Whirlpool.
oh, okay. Do we know what they're using?
They'll be using Wasabi, I think.
I think they used to use Wasabi, but the owner of Bull Bitcoin has been cagey. He's alluded to the fact that he doesn't use Wasabi, but he's allegedly got his own method of doing it. I don't know what it is, but he claims that it's, well, we know it's not Whirlpool because he hates Samurai's guts, but he claims it's not Wasabi either.
Okay. Either way, if they're coin joining, they are a regulated company, so they obviously know the origins of their own funds. They know the inputs, they know the outputs. So if they are pressured by the government, I mean, they will have to put out the information. So we're not, as a user, you're not getting privacy in that respect because they obviously know all flows. And from the outside perspective, if the company is large enough and the deposits and the withdrawals are just in such a big amount, it's from the outside looking in, it's kind of like a custodial mixer, is it not? So if I'm just monitoring like Kraken's in and outflows to their known addresses, linking the specific user funds going in and out, if they're not the identical amounts, will be pretty difficult. So I don't quite see where the benefit directly would be for the users, other than that it's just generally good to support CoinJoin.
I think they do it purely from an ideological reason. Like you say, it's for me just looking at their deposits. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell even if they didn't do any coin joins. You're absolutely right. I think they do it purely from an ideological standpoint.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's such large funds. You know, if you get one large exchange doing it, it would make a massive difference. And I guess my reason I'm questioning it is you have so many of these exchanges that have public figures who say, I really care about Bitcoin. I'm really here for the cause. They tell everyone that all the time. And then with their actions, that doesn't follow. And so doing something like this, if it is legal and they can do it technically, if it's possible for them to do it without getting shut down, and they want to tell everyone how much of a Bitcoin company they are and how much they care about this going forward and how much they care about their users and blah, 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 well, then fucking do it, because it would make a massive difference.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like I alluded to earlier, I think most of these regulated exchanges are just shit scared of the regulator, which is probably for good reason. You know, the regulator doesn't have a good track record of making rational decisions or regulations, do they? So I think most of them are coming from the standpoint of, well, if we just do nothing, or if we just do the same as everybody else, then we're hopefully we won't be targeted.
Okay. I mean, we maybe shift gears to some updates. Got not a huge list, but a few notable ones. We've got Raspberry Blitz. That was a nice one. I think a lot of people have been anticipating the 1.8.0. The most notable change is the new web UI. That was something that's been requested by a lot of users over the years. I mean, obviously, for everyone who knows, like the origins of Raspberry Blitz, it was like came out of like the hack days in like the Berlin circles, most notably like Rootsol started that up with the guys from Fulmo, and since then, like OpenOms as well has been big in there. And it's been a very geared towards developers from the beginning, but a lot of just general Bitcoin users have adopted it because it is very powerful, but they've only had like a terminal access up till now. So they have made it pretty easy. So it's a bit like kind of like the MS-DOS kind of visuals. So you are guided a bit more than just like a plain terminal, but still it's a lot of people have gotten used to like the flashy UIs from the likes of Umbrel and MyNode, and now also Brennan Dojo. So yeah, they took that to heart and have built a web UI over the last months, obviously with a new API to connect, so the browser can call back, and it is pretty much plug and play. So you just have to, as you would usually, just flash your SD card, plug it in, and because the Raspberry Blitz has a small display, if you choose to use the recommended setup, after booting on the display, you'll be shown a URL that you just type into your browser, and the web UI will launch if you're in the same local network, and then it will guide you through setup there.
Very nice.
Thanks for the reminder, actually. I need to update mine today. I'm a bit slow on the uptake with that one. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so that was a big development there. On other updates, there's just a small one was Coldcard v 5.0.6. They had a potential vulnerability with virtual disks, so that was patched in that one. So anyone who's already updated to v.5.0.5 should definitely update now to 5.0.6. And the other one, then we had another release when we spoke briefly about last week, or last time with Brother Rabbit as well, when we were at the retreat, was the border wallets. That was a great one, maybe because we spoke about it a bit last time. Q&A, have you had the time to play around with that?
Shamefully, no. And I say shamefully because I've had a front row seat to watch Super Faro and MTC on Telegram sort of build this from literally nothing. I know Max had MTC on the podcast last week, I think. So obviously there's a full deep dive in there. But yeah, I haven't run through it, physically run through it to create one. But as I say, I've got a fairly good understanding of it in terms of I've seen it be built from the ground up, and these guys have put a shit ton of work in to get this to where it is. And I think, yes, it is slightly more complicated than potentially some other more simple solutions, but I see its use case for a fairly specific purpose. Obviously, clues in the name border wallets. And I think it's an incredibly powerful tool for people that are in that situation, that are in a pinch, that might need to just to cross a border with their seed, that they wouldn't feel comfortable doing so in plain text or with any of the alternatives. So I think so certainly, people in the third world that are, quickly uprooted from their homes, absolutely a very, very powerful tool. So yeah, promising to see that get built out. And I know the guys are still working on future improvements, which obviously I won't share publicly just yet. I won't steal NTC's thunder, but they're not done yet, is all I'll say.
Yeah, I was really impressed with it. I was just amazed that MTC managed this, to be honest. Such a weird guy, and to put this out, I was like, fucking hell, really done wonders here. Yeah,
it's really funny, actually. Before he'd sort of put or started with the actual build, and before he'd even got in touch with Super Fat Arrow, I had a call with him one Saturday afternoon. He just pinged me on Telegram, and he's like, I've got this idea. Do you fancy hearing me out and seeing what you think? I just want some feedback. And he had like a little rudimentary presentation there, and he ran me through it. I was like, this is definitely got legs, and it's definitely going to be useful to some people. To see it go from that and like an idea in his head to what they've built out, with a fully functioning tool and a beautiful looking website, and to see all of the chatter around it was really pleasurable. I don't profess to have had any valuable input whatsoever, other than a couple of comments here and there, but just being able to watch it get built from literally zero as an idea was really great to see, and thoroughly enjoyable from my perspective, and hopefully some people will see some value of it. I've seen a fair few people on Twitter shitting on the idea and didn't like the idea because presumably because they couldn't see themselves ever in that situation where they might need to leverage a tool like this. So also would just say is just approach it with an open mind and think that it might not apply to your specific sort of threat model or needs as a Bitcoiner, but there's definitely people out there that are going to get value from this and they're going to be able to leverage it as an incredibly powerful tool. So kudos to those guys.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that on the last pod as well, but I think that one of the main selling points for the idea is that the amount of options and just like variability in the setup is absolutely endless, and that is, yeah, as I said, one of the main selling points, but also one of the big pitfalls. So I think for a Bitcoin setup, generally, you need to put a lot of thought into that, kind of get a grasp on your threat model and so on, and your just what your surroundings are like, what your options are. But in this case, if you're actually using it for long-term storage, you really have to think through what is sufficient in security and complexity, and what is just going to hurt me long term. So I see the main benefit in like short term stuff, as it's called, obviously border wallets. So that's their approach too. But if you want to do this, really think through how you could lock yourself out and kind of what restrictions you want to set on yourself so that you're sure to regain access.
I think the way I see that this could be leveraged by Western Bitcoiners that potentially aren't going to, certainly in the near future, have to run across a border with anything they can carry, is like using this as a potential additional backup that potentially could be or has a requirement to be stored less securely, if you like. That you could have your typical backup of an encrypted SD card backup or your seed word stamped into metal. But you could also use this as an extra one where you can just store your grid in a drawer somewhere, and somebody finding that grid is not going to have a fucking clue what the hell it is, but it's just one extra thing that you as an individual Bitcoiner who knows what you're doing can call upon in an emergency situation, but it doesn't have to be the be all and end all and the only backup for your Bitcoin. So I think that could be an approach that some people might be able to leverage that may not need it for its intended or first primary use case.
Yeah, absolutely love it. And looking forward to seeing what they'll bring out more. I mean, that's if you teased there already, so I'm looking forward to big things.
I know Max is keen to have a quick chat about mining month. Before we get into that, I just want to do a quick self-shill on C-Tool, which is obviously my C-Tool, clues in the name, that's built with Superfat Arrow. We released version 2.0 a couple of weeks ago, just after you guys recorded the last podcast. And there's a couple of small updates in there. The main one for me that I just wanted to shout out was the Multi-Sig address derivation. So we've added the ability now that you can load the public key. Let's say you're setting up a 2 or 3 multi-sig in Sparrow, and you want to just, once you've built that wallet, you obviously get a list of addresses, and you want to sense check that Sparrow is acting in good faith and that it's showing you the addresses that actually belong to that wallet. We've now added the ability in C-Tool that you can just paste in the public keys, so your XPub or your ZPub, into the tool, set your threshold. So again, in this instance, it would be 2 or 3, and it would then spit out a list of receiving addresses, and you can just use that as a quick sense check to check that your chosen coordinator software is acting in good faith, which I believe it's the first of its kind that's not physically a wallet, if you like. And obviously the beauty of this is that you're when you're doing the check, there's no private information being entered into the tool, so it's less important that you need to do this on like an air-gapped laptop with no Wi-Fi card or anything like that, because you're just pasting it in ZPubs. So there's no sort of security risk there, but it's just a quick check that you can use to check that your chosen coordinator software is acting in good faith. So I was quite excited about that one. It's one that's been on our hit list for quite a while, and pleased to finally get it in there. So I'm done self-shilling now, Max. So if you want to carry on with your self show.
Yeah, I'll do mine after. I was just on that. So are you saying you're putting the Xpub in to check that the wallet is not feeding you fake addresses, which then they could steal
Exactly.
funds rather than okay. And so then by using that tool, the only thing that you have to make sure is that there's no leak for privacy, that it doesn't somehow link that to you, so someone knows, oh, okay, this is this is owned by Q&A, and that would be, I guess,
Yeah,
the only thing. It's
exactly.
not actually
Exactly.
it's not security, it's a privacy
Correct.
concern.
Yeah. Again, I with every release and every tweet piece of information that I say about this seed tool is use it offline. That doesn't change just because we're putting ZPubs in instead of seeds. I'd still use it offline. I was just trying to make a point that this time to perform the check, you don't need to put any security sensitive information like private keys into the tool. It's just like you say, privacy conscious information like your extended public key, because all we're doing is deriving addresses.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, well, I'll just do a quick self-shill then. Mining month. Pretty fucking exciting, actually. I've not really lifted my head up for a long time. I've been putting out loads of content, which is all just stored. So every single day of that month, there will be at least one episode that will go out. So there'll be bite-sized Bitcoins, there'll be panels, there'll be FUD busters, there'll be more long-form conversations, prizes and giveaways. I think we've got 4 S9s that are being given away so that people can actually start mining at home and start learning. Fan shrouds going out to people, a load of other gear and merch and stuff, and involvement from the kids so they can ask questions. Some of them have been doing some bite-sized Bitcoins themselves. So yeah, it's going to be pretty fucking exciting.
Yeah, I listened to your podcast with John, was it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, really interesting guy. Actually, I like listening to him, and he's got he should be doing voiceovers. That guy.
He's got a lovely voice, hasn't he? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but go on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I've really nailed it there. He's got a great voice, loads of ideas on all the mining stuff, and knows some of the best miners I've spoken to. People who are really building interesting stuff, and they've all jumped into the Telegram group with us, all helping. And also, his wife Sarah is incredible. Like, she's been organizing everything. I'm, as you know, like really, really disorganized, and there's so much going on for this thing. And she's just taken it upon herself to make sure that everyone's lined up, every schedule is done properly. She's been reaching out and getting sponsors who are going to give back to anyone who's listening, and all this stuff that I would have fucked up completely. So the two of those guys have just come in and just made this thing possible. And literally could not be doing this without them. And it's just amazing to have so many people who have just jumped up and said, yeah, we're going to get involved and this is important. And well, for all the reasons that we were talking about earlier, like having some no KYC sats is pretty important.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, Q&A just mentioned, but everyone go back and listen to that episode with John. That was amazing. And I now, knowing that there'll be a lot more content coming out over a whole month on that topic will be absolutely amazing. So really looking forward to that. So like, when's that going to be exactly? When are you going to kick that off?
1st of September. I've got about 15 episodes backed up already that I've done and edited and are ready to go. And every day I've got 4 more recordings today. So we're just absolutely plowing through. So yeah, every single day there'll be 1 or 2 from the 1st of September. There's some articles being written as well, just loads of content. And like I said, the giveaways will start on the 1st of September as well. So any sponsorship that we're taking on, none of the sats are going to any of us organising it. It's all then going to make sure that all the shipping of fan shrouds and the S9s and any other bits that are going to people, that's all covered. So Crypto Cloaks have stepped up and said they're going to be helping with a few bits, and Black Coffee's going to be printing those fan shrouds. John's giving a couple of S9s away himself. I think Kaboom Racks are getting involved and giving a couple away as well. And more to come.
Fantastic.
Yeah, exciting times. Looking forward to that. Hope it goes well.
one thing we are going to need is some help from some of the privacy guys. So if anyone has any advice for the miners, making sure that they know how to set up Whirlpool, making sure that they are not giving away their location when they're mining, any sort of tips and tricks and stuff like that. That's been quite a theme in the Telegram group. Is, a lot of these guys are really thinking seriously about how they can refine things. So basically we want involvement from anyone who can give advice as well as asking questions.
Is it worth putting a link to the Telegram room into the show notes? I'll be happy to drop in there and throw in my 2 sats.
Yeah, definitely. I'll do that. Good idea. Cool. Well, that's my shill done. Q&A, you've done yours. Antomous, have you got anything?
Well, there are a few things coming up now. We've got the materials sent out, so the seed mints will be they're being produced now, so that's amazing. It was a long process, took a lot longer than we thought, but they'll be there shortly, so they're being produced. So keep a lookout for that. And we've also launched the small square steel QRs. So that you don't have any branding of a seed signer or anything else. They're a lot more compact and like more Anon style there. So for anyone who is waiting for that, make sure to check that out. And you might, if you've been following the site for a while, you might see that we've lowered the prices pretty substantially, because with just the amount we've been able to produce now, we could go down with the price. So we decided to pass that on. So anyone who was hesitant because of that fact, you might want to jump in and have a look around again.
Awesome. I just had a thought, Max. Have you still got my keyring that Antomous did for me?
Yeah, I've got the key ring and I've got, I think, a few plates and bits and pieces, haven't I, Antomous?
Yeah. There should be a package.
I just thought it was ironic that I'm going to see Antomous before I see you, Max, and we live in the same country.
Yeah, well, that's your fault because
true.
It got sent out to me and you were like, oh, yeah, just bring it along to Bitcoin Beach. And I was like, yeah, that's good. And so I packaged it all nicely and was ready to give it to you, but you didn't arrive. So, it's your fault.
Guilty.
And then I had a load of stuff come over from SNCC as well, which then was given to MTC. And then MTC has fucking nicked that as well. So he's holding my stuff hostage. I'm holding yours hostage. No one's got what they're supposed to, but except for me, actually, because I did win in the prize. I won some seed plates, so I'm winning here.
Oh, I saw that. Did you win what was it, a quiz, on Bitcoin history quiz?
Yeah. It's just basically the biggest brain there. Obviously won. Obviously that's me. And just got loads of prizes. Wasn't even really paying attention, but just smashed it, to be honest with you.
Oh, well done.
No, I don't know how that happened. I think that potentially everyone was hanging from the night before, or people had sunstroke, or I don't know what happened. But anyway, I got some.
You
really
were the
nice
only one
prizes.
taking part, weren't you? That's
pretty much.
really
Yeah.
Happened.
Yeah. One of the kids was as well, but I sabotaged them, so they lost.
Is that the one that was doxing everybody?
Yeah, that was so funny. But yeah. Anyway, guys, it's been really good to catch up. Hopefully we do it again soon. And we'll speak soon.
Speak soon, guys. Antomous, I'll see you in Riga, mate.
Looking forward to it. Have a good day, guys.
Later, guys.
Bye. Thanks again for listening. We will be back next month with more Bitcoin updates. In the meantime, I just want to thank everyone for reaching out, streaming sats, and giving feedback. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't checked out our content on Ungovernable Misfits, I suggest you do that now. It's ungovernablemisfits.com. Any feedback, good or bad, is appreciated. Catch you on the next one.